Beating blueprints in one day is so challenging. There's absolutely no progress that you make, which makes it a pretty different beast than dare mode and curse mode. As you'd expect, to win this trophy, you need to reach room 46 on the very first day. While not strictly necessary, this is also an easy way to get your 1 hour speedrun trophy as well. My winning run took about 50 minutes, so this is very doable, despite the fact that I spent a lot of time hemming and hawing over the exact ways to go about it. Now, in order to even attempt this trophy, you need to really understand blueprints, and you especially need to understand how to open room 46. This challenge will test how adaptable you are, and so you need to understand the many paths that can get there that are very complicated. Bear with me as I try my best to explain. Reaching room 46 requires 3 major goals, and each of these goals have different ways to accomplish them. The first goal is an antechamber lever. This is mandatory because that's where room 46 is. You can also get a basement key from here, which is usually helpful, but you might be surprised to hear that basement key isn't strictly necessary. There are a lot of alternate paths that don't require it, so you can save some steps by not picking up the key and instead only entering the antechamber once for your win. As a reminder, the greenhouse and the weight room will give you the south path, the great hall is east, the secret garden is west, but can also be east if you have a power hammer. There's other levers too, but don't worry about them, they aren't feasible on day 1. Okay, second goal you need is to pull back the minecart, and there are 2 sub goals for this. The easiest way by far is to draft a tomb and solve the angel statue puzzle. As a side note, the old advice was to have 1 or 2 ivory dice for the outer room. That's because the tomb was not possible to draw in your starting draft. With recent updates to blueprints, however, that's no longer the case. You can find the tomb on your first pull. If your run is going poorly, I kind of like taking your 3 out of 8 chance for the tomb. You don't have much to risk, but of course, having more dice is always a good idea, especially if your day is going well overall. This requires a pump room, which requires a pool, which requires a gem and some luck. The best way to pull a pool is to use a silver key on the east or the west wing. Normally, a silver key will grab 4-way rooms like passageway, but here's a pro blueprints tip. The game will never spawn rooms that have paths beyond the house. For example, you won't see west paths on the west wing, or you won't draft north paths on rank 9. Anyway, the fountain works, but you will need a basement key. Now that you've pulled back the minecart, the third and final goal is to enter the underground, and there are 3 sub goals for this. First, you can enter through the foundation's elevator. This is pretty tough because foundation just by itself is rare, and you also have to path into its backside to pull the lever. This elevator route does require the basement key. The second way is to use a power hammer outside in the area near the chest elevator, then use it again to smash into the basement. Surprisingly, you don't need a basement key. The third and final way is to use the pump room and drain the reservoir by 1. Doing so means you can enter the main underground area through the same way that you pulled back the minecart, typically the tomb. You can't normally drain the entire fountain and the -1 reservoir, but you can if you power the pump room with boiler room. That is hard to pull off, but it's doable, especially if you keep chaining rooms that continue the power line. Are you still with me? I know this is a lot, but that's what day 1 runs are. They're a lot. And day 1 is a special day in any blueprints playthrough. There are some factors that will always be the same. For example, the dining room will always serve you fish on day 1, which means you get an extra 10 steps from drafting an aquarium. It's not a common room, but aquarium is already very strong for nursery synergies and the ability to dig up dirt, so this gets even better. Another day 1 quirk is your starting draft. Your very first room is always a choice between hallway, bedroom, and closet. In the past, it was recommended to pick bedroom. That's because the starting bedroom always had a chest inside of it, which meant pretty good odds for ivory dice for your tomb. With the new updates, however, it now does not matter when you draft the bedroom. Every single bedroom in day 1 will have a treasure chest in it. As you can imagine, it's not easy getting resources on day 1. That means it's not a bad idea to just use a key on a chest, especially if you think you'll never be able to backtrack to that room again. Steps are so important. Using a key on a chest will usually pay for itself. In fact, sometimes you can profit keys, and if you can pull off a secret garden for a premium antechamber lever option that spreads fruit, ooh, you are the money. All this makes sledgehammer even more important than it usually is. Not only are sledgehammers saving you keys for your chests, but remember all those ways to reach room 46? If you can assemble a power hammer, you've unlocked several powerful ways to win the game. I'm a huge fan of power hammer. I do my best to always draft workshops when I can, which by the way, workshop spawns an item, and on day 1, it's almost always a battery, broken lever, or a sledgehammer to help you summon Exodia. I mentioned steps already, but man, they are so important. We don't have the luxury of an apple orchard or a sauna, it's just 50 steps. An early nursery is huge. In fact, I will often prioritize a nursery over building pathways on my starting wings. That's how strong it is. Running shoes are incredible. Dining room is just straight up S tier. But even more than all this, you have to consider steps when you're drafting all the time. Knowing when to keep pushing on a path or when to turn back for resources is very important. I mentioned shooting your shot with a tomb on the outside, but sometimes you have to go outside anyway, like using the power hammer to go inside the basement. You can save some precious steps by waiting to roll your tomb and doing all the outside stuff at the same time. That matters a lot more if you don't have a nursery or a sleeping mask or running shoes. So again, steps are important. Think about your routes. It goes without saying, but items are also very important. A metal detector can get you all the keys you'll need, and the coins you pick up might even net you a second item or a decent meal in a kitchen. Shovel can dig up turnips. That's huge. By the way, turnips do get buffed by salt shaker. There are times you might want to buy a salt shaker. Crazy. Shovel can also get you keys and even items like secret garden key or broken lever. The dark room is a pretty crazy room because usually it's not great to backtrack for the utility closet. Your steps are very valuable. However, if you can draft a dark room near a utility closet, that is absolutely worth it because the dark room will always have an item. Yes, it could be something lame like a gem or a key, but there's a pretty decent chance that you'll get a lockpick or a broken lever. Green rooms are extremely good for item generation, particularly the courtyard that has a great item in it like a shovel or a metal detector, or it will at least have a chest. It also has dig spots. It can be watering canned. You can even gain a gem from the patio. Courtyard is an S tier room on day one. It is so crucial. It's always worth the gem. However, sometimes you can get a security door in there, which can be a little bit awkward. There's even a subtle reason to draft your courtyard. Let me explain. I love picking the secret passageway, and I love picking green because if you are not on the wings and you've already drafted courtyard, that means that you're guaranteed a free green room, which will either be cloister or aquarium. This works because of a hidden mechanic in blueprints. If you're presented with 3 options and all of them cost gems, the first room will always become free. That's that special cost bypass message if you've ever seen it and you're curious. Cloister might not have dig spots on day 1, but paying 1 gem for 4 paths, that's pretty great, and we've already talked about how amazing aquarium is. However, there's also another strong choice for a secret passage, choosing the orange book for hallways. If you're on the wings, it's not possible to get 4-way doors like passageway or great halls. That means you're very likely to pull foyer and pull it for free. Not only will that save you a ton of keys with your powerful hallways, but that makes the great hall an easy antechamber lever, and you get some extra resources too. So you can start to see how difficult day 1 is. There's so many things to consider, but that's what makes it thrilling. Even as you're bashing your head against the wall over and over again because you're so freaking close, maybe you were off by only a matter of steps, or maybe you got an unlucky special key from the locksmith. No! Locksmith, by the way, is pretty good because you have a 30% chance of getting a secret garden key, but there's also a decent chance of getting a prism key or a silver key. Ugh. Funny enough, I had a streak of unlucky runs where I would go outside, pull off a tomb, solve the minecart, then return to the mansion and start drafting dead ends for my day to be over. It was absolutely hysterical. Frankly, the biggest skill check for you is your risk tolerance. As a player, I like to play risky until a winning image can solidify in my head. In other words, I play conservatively when I'm drowning in items, and I take chances when things are not going super great. How do you know when things aren't going super great? Again, items are a really good way to know. Oh, remember how your very first door is always the same 3 rooms during day 1? I made a habit of a center door closet to instantly know what item I've got. Getting a sledgehammer, metal detector, shovel, or heaven forbid if you're lucky enough for the lucky rabbit's foot. Wow, that's golden. Heck, I've even learned to love the silver key as a means to reliably draft the pool. If I didn't get any of these options, I reset. Sorry, but I'm not wasting my time on a coin purse. Day 1 is hard enough. You have to know when to call it. Reset meta is a thing, by the way. Blueprints doesn't have a built-in way to start over day 1. The fastest way I found is to call it a day, exit to menu, delete the save, and then hop back in. Alt F4 and reloading the game was not faster, at least not in my underpowered PC setup. Now, I want to talk about some of the weird rooms of day 1. There's a lot of obviously good stuff and some not so obvious stuff. Patio. Look, this room pays for its own gem. It's got dig spots. It makes courtyard even better. better, and sometimes there's free items in here. Veranda is a harder sell at 2 gems. Let me tell you, gems are very precious in day 1. However, we've discussed how important items and resources are. Making green rooms even stronger is incredible, so if I see an early veranda, you better believe I'm going for it. Greenhouse, man, it's a solid room. You've got a lever in there, it's got dig spots, the items typically incredible, like a shovel or a watering can. For whatever reason, it's my least used room, probably because I tend to favor the power hammer for my broken lever, but man, don't sleep on the greenhouse. Boudoir, I can't believe I have to even bring this up, but I saw a day 1 tier list on Reddit that put it at C, so I have to address it. Boudoir profits you a gem, which again is insane on day 1, and it has sleep synergies with nursery and sleeping mask while continuing not being a dead end. All I can say is it is not a C tier room. Garage, not a weird room, but there are weird interactions. I used to think garage was guaranteed on the 4th rank of the West Wing. It is very, very likely, but if you whiff here, don't worry, you still have decent chances the more north you go. Just keep in mind you can never draft a garage going from the south side. And more important than this is a rare but very possible outcome. If you have a secret garden, then you draft the garage above it, you can access the secret lever without a power hammer. Granted, you're on the west side and the secret lever's on the east side, but still, it could totally matter. Finally, let's talk about 3 similar rooms: archives, weight room, passageway. They're all 4-way paths. They all have power ducts for a boiler plus pump room combo, and they're also likely to have security doors. That last point is really important. You are always gutting for utility closet to get your garage and your tomb, so being able to save keys on security doors is massive. Security room is already a great room. Heck, you can even find a lockpick in there, which is crazy. The fact that it can save you so many keys as well as be a T-shape is absolutely worth the gem cost. Archives and weight room in particular are how I finally beat this challenge at 2 a.m. in the morning after a ridiculously long stream. Basically, I promised the audience that I would not stop until I finally got the win, and yeah, it took quite a while. Anyway, I had an unfortunately very late security room at rank 7, but that's okay. I still had 2 keys and I was more than ready for security doors to show up. Then came a very big draft decision. Do I draft passageway or do I draft archives? Passageway is safe, but then I'd go down to 1 gem in the late game. It might not seem intuitive, but archives is absolutely the play, especially because of those security doors. Remember, you've got to take risks, and preserving gems is so important for winning, especially if you want things like pump room and boiler room. Frankly, I got rewarded instantly because I was able to draft laboratory on the east, and my lab experiment was incredible. Drafting an archived room would reset my dice total to 2. I figured that even if some of the info was hidden from archives, a consistent 2 dice could help me brute force anything. And wouldn't you know it, we got a pool up on the north side. Thanks to our experiment with dice rolls, we were also able to trivially pull a boiler room, and then came the true decision of this run. I did not have the gems for passageway, so it was either weight room or this mystery room that's either a furnace or the pump room that I need to win. I was stressed beyond belief because my step count was 25. That's pretty low. Even if we power the pump, I need to go all the way outside, down below, and still have the steps to enter the antechamber again. Now, I hadn't eaten dinner yet, which is very helpful for weight room. Plus, I have 9 coins for a club sandwich in the kitchen, and I've got running shoes. All that together seems like enough steps, but was it really? It was so late in the morning, and I was stressed as heck about this. I did crunch it out, and I said, screw it, we're pumping iron. I did lose 1 step in a fringe interaction that's worth talking about. Remember, I had 25 steps, which when cut in half, get rounded up to 13 in blueprints. However, I ran immediately into the weight room before its effect triggered, meaning I actually had 24 steps slashed down to 12. It's kind of like how you could enter a bedroom at 0 steps and still live. Blueprints has these delayed triggers with rooms that usually works in your advantage, but again, important to talk about this weird fringe interaction. The reason I went weight room is because it's fully powered with 2 extra doors, meaning double the chance to see the pump room, especially with my crazy dice reset experiment. We did get there thankfully, but then my new problem was I've never done the powered pump in a single run, meaning I had to crunch the numbers to get a fully drained fountain and the reservoir with -1 water and do it fast enough so I could still get the 1 hour trophy. Thankfully, I managed to get there. I ate all my food, and wouldn't you know it, running shoes came in clutch. Seriously, these shoes are the best icing on a cake that you can ask for. You can win without them, but holy cow, do these kicks put in work. The total time it took me to get both the day 1 trophy and the 1 hour speedrun trophy was 17 hours. That much time, by the way, is about as long as it took me to beat both dare mode and curse mode combined. Day 1 is tough. It's not for the faint of heart, but it's doable, and frankly, it's really thrilling. In fact, I would recommend not doing what I did, you know, forcing yourself to keep playing for the win just for the entertainment of a chat as you get more and more tired and tilted. No, my friends. Instead, try doing a few attempts a day to slowly get the hang of things. That way, you don't tilt off. Believe me, you can and will tilt off. Now that the trophy runs are done, I've been streaming some new challenges just for fun. We've been reaching room 46 without drafting certain colors, like for example, no green rooms, no purple rooms, and no red rooms, very difficult. Eventually, I've got some really hardcore challenges in mind, like no picking up gems or only drafting blue rooms. If you have any ideas for challenge runs, let us know in the comments. As always, I'm Scoutmaster Demi. Thanks for caring for our camp, and I'll see you around the fire.